Hey, everybody, we're live today. Drew Allen here, your Millennial Minister of Truth. It's good to be with you. It's Thursday, 6 p.m. Eastern Time. We're launching liftoff here, and it's Easter weekend. A lot of people are taking tomorrow off and doing a 4-day weekend. My daughter, her spring break began today, and I got to go and watch my 3-year-old sing a bunch of songs in this class with 3 to 6-year-olds. She made it almost through, but it was fun to see. It's an amazing thing being a parent and getting to do those things. We got a big show today, wrapping up the week. It's been over a week, I think, since I was able to get behind this microphone last. I want to touch on, Trump's speech about Iran, weigh in on Iran. Obviously, I want to touch on this birthright citizenship, this case in the Supreme Court, and a couple other things here. But first, I just want to start off kind of light. There's a clip that went viral of a young boy. I don't know if he's 8, if he's 11, how old he is. He's a young kid. And he was there to watch the Artemis 2 liftoff to go and explore the moon. And I'm 39 now, and I was so uplifted by his enthusiasm for what this project brought out in his own imagination, the excitement in his voice. I just want to play the clip for you if you haven't seen it yet. He's interviewed by CNN here, and man, it warms my heart, and I'll just weigh in on it a little bit more in just a second. Here's the clip.
Why do you want to be here? Why do you love space? Why do you love being a part of history?
We're going back to the frickin' moon, that's why.
We talk about, Iran, and we have these heated debates, and honestly, we get bogged down on a lot of things that are going to be resolved. We spend our time worrying about things that haven't come true yet. Some things that are real and some things that aren't real at all. They're just manufactured for clickbait. But here you have something the Trump administration is doing that has this young kid so excited. We're going back to the freaking moon, man. We're going back to the freaking moon. And I just think about maybe when I was his age, this hope and promise and the things that are outside of politics that get you excited, that really help to bring out patriotism in a country and young people. And this is one of those things. And we have failed miserably in terms of our space exploration and spending money on launching these types of missions in the past. And, I'm not going to nerd out so much on this show because I'm not prepared to do it yet. I haven't had time to read about it as much as I want to, but it's pretty exciting. This Artemis 2 mission is one of many missions to come. And these astronauts aren't going to actually make a landing on the moon. They're going to go and orbit the moon, and they're going to take pictures and document to prepare for future longer stays actually on the moon. So what is in store is pretty exciting. It's not just going into space and looking at the moon or landing on the moon. It's actually preparing for a longer visit, maybe a camp out on the moon. And then obviously Mars being after that. But it is exciting. It's 2026. And I'll do this sometimes. But by the way, folks, if you're just tuning in for the first time, this is a very different episode of the Drew Allen Show for you. Because I think Easter's coming up and I'm exhausted. And I want to just have a little reverie and fun here. But, I live out in the countryside in the Napa Valley in Northern California. And I'll usually turn on the hot tub at night. After my wife goes to sleep, I've got to stay up and keep working because of my many jobs I have to work to afford to stay here and live here. And most nights it's pretty clear, and I'll get in there and there's not much light pollution, and I'll just look up at the stars and gaze. And it's what people have been doing since the beginning of time. And it really does just captivate your imagination looking up at what these astronauts are getting to witness and explore and experience right now. And I wish them success. And I think this is a moment and something this administration is doing that I would hope that every American listening to that young man again, the excitement in his voice, we're going to the freaking moon, man. Everyone, regardless of your politics, should be able to get behind and support. Um, but let's get into the Iran stuff a little bit. I don't want to spend too much time on it, but I've said that before, and then I spend the whole show on it. As I was going to sleep last night, I was thinking about, the midterms. I was thinking about the next presidential election. I was thinking about MAGA and Donald Trump and my support for Trump and where we are and what he's accomplished and, what problems there are. And I was particularly thinking about some of these voices out there with much bigger microphones and audiences than I have that are really just preaching a message of doom and gloom every single day, day in and day out. And right now it's related to, the war in Iran. And I've said many, many times on this show, because I don't expect everyone to agree with me on everything, but I've said that there are legitimate reasons to be critical of this war in Iran. There are legitimate concerns about it, but it's gotten to a point where it's descended into hyperbole. Most of these people out there, I've got a friend, for example, and I've got to get him on the show soon to debate me on the Iran war stuff. I just haven't been able to set it up yet or had time. But I've noticed, this is somebody who used to be a client of mine as a publicist, and he's somebody I would recommend as a foreign policy expert on various issues, even when he wasn't, paying me to do that. And I've seen him completely change to a 180 on his position on Iran. He wrote an entire book about what a threat Iran was, what a grave threat they were. And now he's going on Tucker Carlson and other shows. And he's saying the exact opposite. And he spends 24/7, his entire X feed, every interview he does is about doom and gloom about Iran. I mean, he sounds like a never Trumper. And it's really paid off in dividends in terms of getting him to the position of fame and notoriety that I know that he's been seeking. And so a lot of this doom and gloom is simply about clicks. People respond to it. It's an emotional argument that's never based on facts. It's based on predictions that don't come true. And I think that what I should do today is, instead of talking about what other people think and other people's positions or defending a position or this and that, I am a Trump supporter. I'm a father. I'm an American citizen. I have a pretty impressive resume in terms of what I've done and involved in politics and everything else. And I think I should just tell you, the audience, where I stand, what I believe, instead of spending the show just simply attacking other people or defending people or whatever else. I don't have an issue with the Iran war. I mean, I'm trying to have an issue with the Iran war because I'm told that, that's the popular position to take, but I just am not moved to do so. What I don't want is a forever war. And one of the problems with the forever wars that is really, captured so many Americans my age, older, even younger, is that, we experienced Iraq, we experienced the humiliation of Afghanistan and Biden's disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan. And so we look at that and we say, no more of these wars in the Middle East, for example. All these wars are the same. They're not for American interests. We don't get anything out of them, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I don't see that in Iran. That's never been the proposed objective of Donald Trump, to get involved in a forever war. We've been there a month. That's not a forever war. Donald Trump in his speech reiterated that, his objectives are almost complete. I mean, you can't give a specific hard timeline to these things. You can't take things off the table when you're involved in a conflict with somebody and promise certainly, no boots on the ground, no matter what, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, it's this purity test that wants to ignore reality and unforeseen challenges and obstacles. That is part of my problem with some of the people that are out there speaking about politics or foreign policy, et cetera, all the time. There's too many factors. You have to make a number of decisions. I mean, if you were to start a company, for example, You get the framework, you file for the LLC or C Corp or whatever you decide to do in terms of its incorporation. And there's going to be changes as you go along. But the problem with the forever wars with Iraq and Afghanistan is there's never a clear objective. Like what was the objective? I mean, Iraq, we went in there because of so-called weapons of mass destruction. That was the lie we were fed to get us and other countries involved in Iraq. And we know that Saddam Hussein didn't have any weapons of mass destruction. So obviously that's a problem. But Iran was pursuing nuclear weapons. We know they were pursuing nuclear weapons. They've been doing that for, 30 years. And, this question about, well, was the threat imminent or not? I mean, what's your definition of imminent? 5 years, 10 years? Is it the Iranians putting a nuke on a ballistic missile now and firing it, across the ocean? Is that what makes it imminent? My brother Brian O'Shea has just checked into the chat. He's such a great guy, such a great American, really an inspiration. Brian O'Shea. If you're not following him on X or elsewhere, please do. Brian, by the way, since you're in here, just checking in. There's more people joining the show as we speak because it's live, so it's important to reiterate some things. Brian, I've decided that I don't want to spend 10 minutes just attacking people who have disagreed with me or I have disagreements with about the Iran war or defending other views. I just want to explain to people where I am with the Iran war, and that's that, because I'm an American citizen and people likely agree with me or don't. But look, Iran is a threat to the United States of America. They shout death to America. They've done it, for 47 years. Israel's an ally. I know that I'm supposed to hate Israel for some reason as well. I don't hate Israel. I look at the landscape of allies, and it's apparent to me that Israel is one of our closest allies, maybe our closest ally. They're certainly closer allies and better allies than the NATO countries that refuse to allow us to even use their bases in a conflict that we, the United States of America, who foots the bill for their entire defense, they're a better ally than those NATO countries that are telling us to screw ourselves, despite the fact that they rely on us completely for their defense. Donald Trump determined that it was important to take this action right now. And as a matter of fact, over the weeks that we've been in there, the need for us to take this action has been confirmed. They have ballistic missiles that can hit London and Paris. That is beyond what their ranges were supposed to be. So it tells you that the Iranians were pursuing ballistic missile systems that were in violation of what they were telling us they were going to do and needed them for. And the thing that shocks me, I suppose, is a lot of people who, I don't know, they have a intense, irrational hatred of Israel. They don't have any problem with these NATO countries that repeatedly take advantage of us, who are right now telling us to screw ourselves, including Italy, by the way. I'm so disappointed in Prime Minister Meloni, who I really love. And there's obviously a propaganda war going on. All this is designed to divide this country. It's to, using Israel as the thing to divide us, which I don't understand it. I don't understand. I mean, Israel sits there in the Middle East surrounded by a bunch of terrorist regimes, and they're a democracy, one of the lone actual democracies in the Middle East. Arabs are allowed to live. Muslims are allowed to live in Israel. They're not allowed. You don't see Jews living in Iran. You don't see Jews or Christians living in so-called, Palestine. So I don't have an issue with Israel. We give foreign aid to tons of countries that we shouldn't be giving foreign aid. We give foreign aid to our enemies. And I'm supposed to be outraged by the fact that, we give some aid to Israel, which then, of course, is used to buy military equipment and everything from the United States. I don't hate Jews. I don't hate Israel. And, I just see every argument under the sun targeting different people who would support Israel to try and turn people against Israel or Jews broadly. I'm a Christian. Most of my Bible is the Old Testament. The 10 Commandments serve as the basis of so much of Western civilization and progress, actual progress. But I'm supposed to believe that Jews and Judaism are a greater threat to my framework of thinking, my own religion, than, say, Islam, which was born to combat Christianity? Judaism has much more in common. It's 100% compatible with Christianity and the West. Islam isn't. And so I don't want a forever war, but there is no forever war. It's not a forever war. A month is not a forever war. And I hear people saying, we're losing the war in Iraq. We're losing the war in Iraq. A bunch of gets of mullahs? No, we're not. We decapitated them. We destroyed their entire navy. Khomeini's dead. We have the ability to kill all of these people. So far, even without boots on the ground. And so, now we're in this situation. We're in there. We know they have, nuclear material. And so we have to finish the mission. What's so ironic about this is that the problem with the forever wars wasn't just that they were 20-year wars that resulted in nothing beneficial to the United States of America. The problem with the forever wars is they never accomplished anything, right? They never had a clear objective. Well, Trump has laid out a clear objective in Iran. We want to ensure that they have no ability to harm Israel or us in the future. We want to destroy that capacity completely. And, these people that are arguing so vehemently against, our presence in Iran right now, they would bring about the very problems of the forever war if we used their judgment. So, David Lee, I will be forgotten in 3 months. David Lee, I have a great announcement for you. So I just announced officially today, I am a commentator and columnist at the Daily Signal. They have, million subscribers or something like that, 1.5 million. So I don't think I'll be forgotten in 3 months, David Lee. I think that you'll be remembering my name for quite some time, and hopefully it'll be in front of your face more often than you like. You'll have to block things on X to keep me out of your feed. But the reality is, if this war, Iran war, ends, as they suggest, in even 2 months, all of you people out there, all the people out there screaming about us losing and the gas prices and everything else, what will you say then? This will be forgotten. By the way, where is everyone on the Epstein files right now? Oh, that was the big issue with Trump. Release the Epstein files. Okay, well, you get, 3.5 million pages of Epstein documents. They're out there, and they mostly incriminate a bunch of Democrats. Thomas Massey's out there attacking Trump over it. We've got to get justice for these victims. Where's the justice? The files are out there. Have you read all 3.5 million pages yet? Where did that story go? Huh? I'll get into Pam Bondi in a second, by the way. She's out. He's fired her. But, Iran is just the next Epstein. And this is what I was thinking about last night as I was laying in bed. The Megyn Kellys, the Dave Smiths, the failed comedian, Dave Smith, the Joe Rogans, who else? It's a long list of podcasters, Podcastistan. These people were never MAGA to begin with. This movement wasn't built with them at all. That's what's so interesting about this to me. All these people that claim we're so divided that, MAGA can't live out, can't survive this, etc. They weren't part of original MAGA anyway. They glommed onto the movement when it was convenient and popular, and now they're back where they were to begin with. We didn't lose anybody. Personally, I mean, I've been here, so, part of MAGA since the beginning. These people weren't. Megyn Kelly didn't support Donald Trump in 2016. They had a big feud. Joe Rogan didn't support him in, 2020. He came along and supported in the most recent election. So did other people. But, these people are just permanent contrarians. And honestly, they're really cowardly. They're really cowardly. When the going gets tough, these people just want to abandon ship. But the problem is the pretend game. They want to speak for MAGA and people like me, but they were never MAGA to begin with. Nick Fuentes, that's not a MAGA guy. Just because at some point you decide to start talking in pro-Trump terms doesn't make you MAGA. Nick Fuentes has always been an anti-Semite. He's always been pro-Adolf Hitler. He's always been an insane person. Now, he's very entertaining. He's right like a clock is right. A broken clock is right twice a day. I mean, the same is true as is true of the InfoWars guy. What's that? Alex Jones. Alex Jones isn't MAGA. Here's what the reality is. All these fringe kooks, for the most part, that were relegated to the fringe as kooks for a good reason that we didn't accept. Yeah. When they wanted to support Trump, we accepted them. And we unfortunately boosted their profiles. But just because we accepted them for a while doesn't mean that they represent the movement. We reject them again. If you want to do this game and go back to who you were before, fine. MAGA was here before Alex Jones decided to be pro-Trump. Now that he's against Trump again, great, Alex. Go back and talk about how Sandy Hook didn't happen and get your ass sued into oblivion for the 600th time. I don't care. And the reality is I don't have your back. I'm not going to sit here and defend you because, one time you said you were pro-Trump. Great. Go back to the fringe where you belong because you're a kook. Just because you get things right twice in your life or twice a year doesn't mean anything to me. That's not a good batting average. These people just want eyeballs. I see these people out there. Donald Trump is doing this to force an energy crisis, so that we can be slave. What are you talking about? We don't even get our oil from the Middle East for the most part. We're net exporters of oil now. All of these predictions and the doom, it's not based on anything that's happening whatsoever. I was having this conversation with a buddy of mine the other day about how, it's amazing. As much as I hate CNN or NBC or the legacy media, guess what? I trust Caitlin Collins more than Alex Jones. At least if she says something too horrendous, she'll get sued by Trump or someone else and have to issue a correction. There are some standards, low though they be. You have to be so bad, Candace Owens, Alex Jones. You have to be such a lunatic to make Caitlin Collins and people at CNN and NBC and the legacy media look astute. And it's so interesting because the guardrails have come down, right? So you don't have legacy media that has the final say on anything anymore. The gates are open to people like myself, to my brother, Brian O'Shea, and to Candace Owens and to Alex Jones and all these people. But, it's like when the iPhone came out. You got to adapt to what the problems are with it as well. And there are a lot of negatives to these gatekeepers being removed. It's that anybody can say anything insane. And the point is, they are not motivated by, now this isn't everybody, but a lot of people out there, they're motivated by one thing. They want to get clicks and views. Now, I could sit here. Brian, I'm telling you right now, brother, Brian O'Shea, I could probably grow this show overnight with all the bots and the big accounts out there who would immediately start promoting me. If I would just come out with a message that was anti-Semitic, I could sit here and say, Donald Trump, we got to get rid of this guy. I'm MAGA. He's not MAGA anymore. He's betrayed all the voters with the Iran war. You know, the mullahs are the good guys. Israel's the great evil. We have to crush Israel. I support atomic bombs for Iran now. These Jews control all our politicians. They control me. You know, if I said that message, they would promote it. But I'm not a retard, so I'm not going to do that. And I also have some principles. But anyway, just to summarize before we get into this birthright citizenship stuff, I have no problem with the Iran war. Nothing horrible has happened. As a matter of fact, I support Barack Obama. Listen to Barack Obama here back in 2008.
What we've seen over the last several years is Iran's influence grow. They have funded Hezbollah. They have funded Hamas. They have gone from 0 centrifuges to 4,000 centrifuges to develop a nuclear weapon. So obviously our policy over the last 8 years has not worked. Now, Senator McCain is absolutely right. We cannot tolerate a nuclear Iran. It would be a game changer. Not only would it threaten Israel, a country that is our stalwart ally, but it would also create an environment in which you could set up an arms race in the Middle East. Now, here's what we need to do. We do need tougher sanctions. I do not agree with Senator McCain that we're going to be able to execute the kind of sanctions we need without some cooperation from countries like Russia and China that are, I think Senator McCain would agree, not democracies, but have extensive trade with Iran, but potentially have an interest in making sure Iran does.
So that's 2008. Barack Obama is talking about the fact that, you know, part of the issue with sanction is, you know, Iran is being bailed out by China and Russia. Well, guess what? That was 2008. Now it's 2026. And that's part of the whole problem. You have CRINK, China, Russia, Iran, North Korea. That's the new axis of evil. And I just think, unfortunately, because of the education system or whatever it is, people just, they don't know history. They don't have facts. They can't see beyond the moment and the emotion right now. They can't see how important it is and how this actually improves our lives in the future. How the fact that if we can get rid of and basically defang Iran right now, if Israel can finish the job of installing some sort of democratic power in there or somebody who's not anti-American and anti-Israel, if they can be pro-Western as opposed to pro-China and pro-Russia, that saves us money and improves our lives for decades. He's remaking the Middle East. And by the way, while all of our NATO allies in Europe won't even let us use their bases to land or launch attacks from, you've got all the Middle Eastern countries filled with Muslims, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Bahrain. I mean, all these people, they want Iran gone. What does that tell you about how bad Iran is if these other Muslim countries in the Middle East want Iran gone? It's a problem. And so it's great. It takes a strategic ally of China and Russia off the map. So in short, I know that I'm supposed to hate Israel. I know that I'm supposed to be against this war, and I'm not. I'm not. I think that Trump's doing what's in the best interest of the country. It's not a forever war. If it becomes a forever war, maybe I'll change my opinion. But right now, he's doing this in the best interest of this country and Israel, who I also love, as a great ally. And so I have no problems whatsoever. Everything everybody's upset about hasn't even come true. It hasn't happened. All right. And actually, you know, let me just play this clip if you haven't heard it of Secretary of State Rubio, who has really distinguished himself as one of the greatest cabinet members in the Trump administration, one of the greatest secretaries of state in my lifetime. Listen to him talk about NATO.
That NATO is simply about us having troops in Europe to defend Europe, but when we need their help, not their help, we're not asking them to conduct airstrikes. When we need them to allow us to use their military bases, their answer is no. Then why are we in NATO? You have to ask that question. Why do we have billions and billions of dollars, hundreds of billions of dollars, over the years, trillions of dollars, and all of these American forces stationed in the region? If we can only use, in our time of need, we're not going to be allowed to use those bases. So I think there's no doubt, unfortunately, after this conflict is concluded, we are going to have to re-examine that relationship.
Yeah, NATO is of zero use to the United States of America right now. They take from us gladly. They abuse us. And then when we need something, they won't give us anything at all. It's a horrible arrangement. It was invented to stop the spread of communism. And most of these NATO countries are embracing China and our enemies right now. You know, it's the NATO European countries that rely upon oil from the Middle East, not us. And it's an amazing thing to watch a country like Italy. Pick another one too, but like Italy. And their gas prices are exorbitant over there in Europe. They have great resources under their own soil, but they're a bunch of green New Dealers, and so they won't do it. So instead of drilling for their own oil to make themselves independent and to give relief to the citizens throughout Europe, they just buy the oil from the Middle East, from Iran, for example. From Russia, they get their energy from. And why would you do that to yourself? So Trump says, you know, you guys can buy from us, but we don't even need the Strait of Hormuz to be open because, you know, we don't even get. The only reason our oil prices have gone up a little bit is because of speculation, because of OPEC. But everyone's like, oh man, oil's up $1. It's not even close to what it was at its height under Joe Biden when there was no Iran war. Okay. It's temporary. But I live in California where it's $1 more anyway because I have Gavin Newsom as a governor. All right, let's get into the unrestricted, you know, birthright citizenship stuff here. Oh yeah, Brian's great. Yes. So Peter Schweitzer, who happens to be a client of mine right now, is a publicist. He's out there being talked about in many places, even in the Supreme Court, because of the fact that you've got Chinese elites and other. Do you realize, by the way, to Brian's point with that link, our enemies, the Chinese, for example, they have, you know, Chinese citizens or American citizens with that have had birthright citizenship, or, you know, their allegiance with China. They open up these tourism centers, effectively, I guess you would call them. And they're basically, it's like, you know, when I want to get my passport rushed, there are different companies that I can go through and pay a fee, and they've got relationships and they can get me my passport in, you know, a week if I need it, instead of waiting a month and a half from the US government. Well, you've got our enemies that not only understand that they can just send a pregnant woman over here from their country, the child can give birth here. I mean, the mom can give birth here, and that child immediately becomes a U.S. citizen simply because they're born on our soil. And then, of course, you can have chain migration. You can make the rest of the family, you know, legal or American citizens as well. And of course, their loyalty is actually to China. It's a way to undermine the United States of America. It's insane. Only about 30 countries allow this. So the argument centers around the 14th Amendment. The 14th Amendment, I mean, it is amazing to me that this is even controversial or in question. The 14th Amendment, which is being used to justify birthright citizenship. So the 14th Amendment was ratified in 1868. What was happening in 1868? Well, that would be right after the Civil War. What was the purpose of the 14th Amendment? It was to overturn the Dred Scott Supreme Court decision that said black slaves weren't people and therefore weren't U.S. citizens. It was to guarantee citizenship to freed slaves and their children. People who were born here, who didn't have any other allegiance, and who were fully subject to U.S. laws. Now, Senator Jacob Howard, this is the guy who introduced the citizenship clause in the Senate. He was crystal clear about the intention of the 14th Amendment and its language. Here is the exact quote from the Congressional Globe on May 30th, 1866. This will not, of course, include persons born in the United States who are foreigners, aliens, who belong to the families of ambassadors or foreign ministers accredited to the government of the United States, but will include every other class of persons. Let me just read that again. Foreigners, aliens. He explicitly excluded them. And the key phrase in the 14th Amendment is subject to the jurisdiction thereof. That doesn't just mean physically here and we can arrest you, as the brain trust Ketanji Brown Jackson. Well, you know, if you're in Japan and you steal a wallet, you're subject to their jurisdiction because they can arrest you. This is the diversity, equity, inclusion Supreme Court justice. So it means that you have full political allegiance, no divided loyalty to a foreign power. He excludes diplomats' kids. They're out. Invading armies' kids, out. I mean, can you imagine this? All right, let's just use the Iran war as an example. Let's say that the Iranian Navy, which doesn't actually exist because we sunk the entire fleet. Let's say that the Iranian Navy sent a bunch of ships with their soldiers. And let's say they had females on that boat too. Let's say they sent ships to our shore. Let's say they land off the coast of California, or pick wherever you want. East Coast, West Coast, wherever, whatever long or short route they want to take. Pick a shore. Come up through the Gulf of America, maybe. And so they start building encampments in the United States of America. And the United States is engaged in a war with Iranians on our own soil, like a war like you used to imagine it, you know, trench warfare. It's not fought this way, but just imagine. And let's say this war is lasting 3, 4, 5 years on our own soil, like the Civil War or something like that. And you've got Iranian women giving birth to Iranian babies while this conflict unfolds in America. You're telling me that every single one of these Iranian kids is a U.S. citizen while they're engaged in war with us because they're born on our soil? You think the founding fathers, you think those individuals in the government at the time of Abraham Lincoln and after his assassination in 1868, you think that's what they had in mind for the 14th Amendment? Are you retarded? That's rhetorical, of course. Some people are retarded. Now, here's the problem with the Supreme Court. You know, the Supreme Court has an arrogance problem, and they have a radical problem. But one of the things is that Donald Trump, you know, this lawsuit in the Supreme Court is related to an executive order that Donald Trump wrote and signed that said that this was illegal and couldn't be done. So now they're suing. Now, you think the Supreme Court wants to hand any power or authority like this over the Constitution to the President of the United States? Of course not. Of course not. Over their dead bodies, do they want to say that the president, through an executive order, proved that this interpretation of the 14th Amendment that we've been honoring somehow stupidly for so many decades, that it's been wrong, and the president is right? So you had a big case in 1898. It was United States versus Wong Kim Ark. This is a Supreme Court ruling, right? So that case involved a kid who was born to legal domiciled Chinese immigrant parents who were permanent residents. And the court stressed domicile, permanent home over and over and over again. Now, this wasn't about tourists or visa overstays or border jumpers. Illegal immigration as it existed in the late 1800s did not exist. But this is what they focus on because this case in 1898 said, okay, yeah, no, this person's a U.S. citizen because they were born here. The parents weren't citizens, but they were permanent residents. But now we're trying to use that to suggest that anybody who comes over here, no matter their status, illegal immigrant can cross the border and give birth, and that kid becomes an American citizen. It is the most crazy thing I've ever heard in my life. So, according to Pew Research, in 2023 alone, about 245,000 to 300,000 babies were born in the U.S. to unauthorized immigrant mothers. You got 300,000 babies born to illegals, okay, to make it simple, in 2023 alone. Where's my phone? Well, I don't need to do it. That's 3 million new citizens added in a 10-year decade period. 3 million. What a way to commit national suicide with this insane idea. And then what Brian was referring to earlier, you've got the birth tourism industry, which is a scam, right? So this is 20 to 36,000 babies a year from pregnant foreigners who fly in on tourist visas specifically to give birth. So you've got the communist Chinese, by the way, in Florida and other places that have set up offices, tourism offices, and they arrange for these Chinese citizens to come here pregnant. They get the visas for them so they can come to the state knowing that they're pregnant, and they pop out a baby here in the U.S., and bada boom, bada bing, you've got a Chinese citizen. But it's an American citizen because they were born on soil because the Chinese mom took a vacation while she was 8 months pregnant. 33 countries in the world approximately have unrestricted birthright citizenship. And you know where these take place? Latin countries. There is not a single developed country in Europe or East Asia that does this. Canada does have it, but they don't have the border crisis like we do. Even these NATO retarded countries that we need to sever our ties with, Germany, France, they require at least one parent to be a citizen or legal resident. Why? Because sane nations don't let foreigners unilaterally decide who becomes a citizen. It's not racist or anti-immigrant. It's pro-sovereignty. Every nation on earth controls its own citizenship. Why is America the only one expected to be this suicidal? Can someone answer that question to me? Why are we incentivizing illegal immigration, creating a permanent underclass of non-citizen parents with citizen kids, and turning our hospitals into citizenship mills? Look at all this money we're spending in Iran on the war. Look at how much money we're spending on 300,000 illegals every year. New citizens born to illegals. We don't owe citizenship to these people, these lawbreakers. So why doesn't the Supreme Court seem to see this? Because a lot of people are saying the Supreme Court seems prepared to go the other direction. I mean, we've got a 6-3 conservative majority on the Supreme Court, which, you know, it's not really conservative because you got John Roberts and people like that are scumbags. But we heard oral arguments in Trump versus Barbara, the challenge to President Trump's day one executive order trying to end automatic citizenship for kids of illegals. And the justices sounded pretty skeptical of the administration's position. And, you know, again, they used the United States versus Wong Kim arc, the 1898 case I was just explaining to people. They use that like it's settled gospel for almost everyone born on the U.S. soil. And by the way, it's amazing to think about what's the word? The line here. Okay. So you've got Dred Scott, which was a Supreme Court decision. There was a wrong Supreme Court decision, right? But it was a Supreme Court decision that said blacks aren't American citizens. Well, the Supreme Court ruled. So the Supreme Court here is saying, well, you know, we have this Supreme Court ruling that said, you know, the child of, you know, legal residents from China in 1898 or whenever it actually happened, you know, that case, well, that settles it for illegals that come over here now. So the same Supreme Court. I mean, should we go back to Dred Scott? I guess I'm asking, you know, if the Supreme Court's always right, well, does that mean that blacks aren't American citizens? Because the Supreme Court once ruled that. Is that how this works? You just get to pick and choose which Supreme Court case, you know? But, you know, this is precedent. This is what they use. But I mean, this is what's so insane to me. So Wong Kim Ark involved legal domiciled Chinese parents. And courts have stretched that for 125 plus years to cover illegal entrants and short-term visitors. That's not even what the Wong Kim Ark case was about. And again, you got the framers of this amendment, Senator Howard, Trumbull, etc., that meant full direct allegiance. Not just, we can arrest you if you break a law. Illegal aliens and tourists don't owe primary loyalty here. They owe it elsewhere to their country of origin. But we still exclude diplomats and invading armies. I mean, why is a diplomat from France who's here on assignment at an embassy, why is their kid not become an American citizen? Obvious reasons. They're French. But strip away the diplomatic status and just make them an illegal who crossed the border and they get citizenship? Totally insane. Does this not infuriate you? This is going on right now? It infuriates me. It infuriates me. Just a little bit of advice as we go into Easter here. If you see headlines and articles from the Daily Mail, you should assume that they're lying to you. If you see articles from the Daily Mail UK, you can be assured that they have an agenda that is not the truth. Let me show you what I mean here. This came up the other day, March 30th. Here's the headline. Bullet used to kill Charlie Kirk did not match rifle allegedly used by suspect Tyler Robinson, new court filing claims. Wow, that's a smoking gun. The bullet used to kill Charlie Kirk didn't match the rifle? Gee golly. That must mean that Candace Owens is right. The Jews did kill Charlie Kirk through a trap door or something. Well, if you actually read the article, here's what it says. No, that doesn't work. But his defense attorneys, that'd be Tyler Robinson's, now argue that the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives was unable to identify the bullet recovered at autopsy to the rifle allegedly tied to Mr. Robinson. They couldn't identify the bullets versus it did not match. Well, not being able to identify the bullet is a very different thing than asserting that it doesn't match. Now, the bullet that was used didn't have a metal jacket. It was blunt. It wasn't pointed on the end. And these fragment pretty much every time. And if you go and look up any case involving a murder with a weapon, a gun that has a bullet involved, you would have to fire your defense if they didn't make this claim. I mean, that's one of the first things they try to, the bullet, it's fragmented. You can't, tell me, can you tell me 100% that the bullet matches the gun? Well, I mean, no, because we don't have any pieces to put together. We just have a fragment or whatever else. So that's what every case does. And it doesn't mean that Tyler Robinson's not the killer. It doesn't mean that the bullet doesn't match the rifle. It simply means that the bullet was blown to pieces by design, and therefore you don't have a bullet anymore. So that's your Daily Mail. Here's their latest headline, or one of the latest. Trump takes a dig at Caroline Leavitt as bad publicity spirals. Now, if you read the article, he doesn't take a dig at her at all. They ask him if she's bots or something, and he said, he makes some joke about her and defends her and talks about how great she's doing. But the Daily Mail UK, obviously has an agenda that is anti-Trump and anti-United States of America. Their objective is to divide us and to stir the pot. So if you read anything from the Daily Mail, just read it because you want to read what retards are writing, okay? Just know. Daily Mail Retard Magazine, all right? That's what the Daily Mail is. All right, look, that's all we have time for today. It's been about 50 minutes here. I just want to say, on a high note, a lot of median stuff's taken off this weekend. For Easter weekend, they're taking off Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday for the most part. So 4-day weekend. take stock of what this means. All the doom and gloom out there, everything else, it's really meaningless because Jesus Christ defeated death itself. And all this moaning and complaining and fighting and everything else, who cares? Who cares? Because this world is temporary. And while we are called to make disciples of all nations, while we must be active and make use of our life on this earth to praise God and Jesus Christ, as a Christian, I say, this is not the end all be all. And what we celebrate on Sunday as Christians is that victory over death. The risen Christ who conquered death itself so that we might live for eternity. That is an incredibly powerful message. And he did it for us, for all of us. And I especially want you to think about that if you're a Democrat out there who subscribes to a political belief that tells you that there is no salvation for you. You can vote for Barack Obama, a black man, half black, half white, but you can vote for the first black president twice as a white man, and you're still not absolved of your sins of being a racist. The best you can do is vote Democrat and support our transgenderism and our radical policies that change by the day. Only through that can you still not be absolved of your sins, but do it anyway because it'll make you feel good. But I don't need that. I'm a free man because of Jesus Christ. I don't need anybody's forgiveness out there. I have Christ, and I have a very, very clear blueprint of what I'm supposed to do on this earth. All right, folks. God bless you all. Happy Easter. Happy Passover to my Jewish friends out there. Man, our faiths are intertwined. All right, God bless you all. Until next week.